what he said is threatening.
His intentions were to make her scared.
My son was 7 when this started.
He has said that if he gets out of custody, he will commit a sex act on a male preteen age and that he will kill that person.
This is True Crime Arizona, the podcast.
It's not uncommon for people to get a Facebook message from a stranger. It happens all the time, often unsolicited. It's probably happened to you. In late January of this year, 2022, Lynn Reiner got one of those random messages.
On Thursday, I received a friend request from Carrie Smith, and then he also started commenting on my posts on Facebook.
But for her, he wasn't a stranger. He was a person from her past, a person who changed her life in 1999, a person she never wanted to hear from again.
I didn't respond, I just let him be, hoping he would keep doing it, and I notified the attorneys out here.
One message really freaked her out, and it's understandable why.
The worst one was that he said Mr. RTK is back. And RTK, he calls himself Mr. RTK for rape, torture, and kill.
61-year-old Carrie Smith's dangerous history began in 1984 when he was first convicted as a sex offender from a misdemeanor sexual offense. In 1999, things got bizarre and even more disturbing. His wife told authorities her husband wrote a letter detailing sex acts he wanted to perform on his neighbor in Costa Mesa. That neighbor was a 7-year-old boy. Lynn Reiner is the boy's mom.
He's no joke. He, was stalking my son before we found out about him, and luckily he didn't get a hold of him.
The letter itself wasn't considered a crime, but it did send Smith to the Patton State Hospital in San Bernardino, a psychiatric facility. His stay began as a 72-hour psychiatric hold that turned into a 21-year stay. In hearings while there, he told officials he went by Mr. RTK, which stands for Mr. Rape, Torture, Kill. In 2002, the Orange County District Attorney's Office filed 20 felony counts of a lewd and lascivious act with a minor against Smith, but prosecutors were forced to dismiss those charges due to the statute of limitations at the time. Smith was being held in the mental health institution under a California law that required him to have a new trial every 6 months to determine if he was still a danger to society. Graphic things were said in many of those hearings. Lynn Reiner has heard it all.
I've attended all of the trials over the years because he was able to get a new trial every 6 months and have an opportunity to be released. And over and over and over again, he has shown that he's really, really dangerous. But he claims to have molested hundreds of kids. He says that he's killed some. They've never been able to prove any of that, so we don't know whether he's making it up or, it just hasn't been found yet.
According to the Orange County DA, Smith would repeatedly testify that he fantasized about raping and killing young boys. He claimed to have killed 3 boys and molested 200.
Just the things that come out of his mouth are really scary.
Orange County DA Todd Spitzer said Smith at one point said, quote, "If you don't cut off my penis and hands, I will molest again."
He has said that if he gets out of custody, he will commit a sex act on a male who's of preteen age and that he will kill that person so that they can't testify against him.
Psychologists over the years testified Smith posed a danger and argued to keep him in that facility. But during the pandemic, hearings were canceled, including Smith's, and the hold against him expired July 11th, 2020. Smith was set free, and due to a change in 2005, was not required to register as a sex offender. This was the end of a CBS LA News report after he was released.
he's out somewhere right now and nobody knows where he is, what he's doing. And without the Megan's Law registration and the restrictions that come along with that, he could be sitting on a park bench watching kids play and nobody knows who he is.
It isn't just the Orange County DA who's taking action. The boy's mom has started a petition on change.org. She's looking for signatures to send to the governor to see that Smith is required to be a registered sex offender.
Countless media outlets reported on the change.org petition Lynn started, trying to get California Governor Gavin Newsom's attention. The petition gained more than 38,000 signatures.
He didn't have an opportunity to hurt anybody for so long, and the sex offender registry requirement for him was not a big, major crime when he got it back in the 80s. So I knew there were some challenges there.
At the same time, Orange County DA Todd Spitzer issued a community warning about his release.
What's so scary and so disconcerting about this is as soon as he comes to Orange County, they can release him from the van or the car. He can go into a park, he can go around a school, he can go to a playground, he can go anywhere he wants. And there's nothing we can do about it.
Days later, Smith was required to register as a sex offender, but he was still out free. And Lynn said people were upset.
There were, almost riots in some cases trying to get him out. He was hopping from motel to motel for a couple weeks, I think, if I remember right. And then I guess just decided to get out of town.
That's when he moved to Phoenix.
I felt pretty secure that at least they knew where he was. I didn't know exactly where he was, just that he was there in Phoenix.
What so-called Mr. Rape, Torture, Kill did for about a year and a half here in Arizona is unknown. But we do know about 2 months ago, at the end of 2021, he met Evan Anuna.
He was a nice guy. He was a great guy to live with. I never had any issues with him, and I've had issues with a lot of other people that I've lived with.
Evan said he and Carrie Smith became roommates in a Phoenix apartment together 2 months ago. Evan saw no red flags.
He was open pretty much with his hospitality. He was very understanding. He never gave me any issues. And all around, he seemed like a nice guy.
So as you can imagine, Evan was very confused when things all changed on February 2nd.
I heard talking outside. I thought it was just one of his friends that had come over, and then when I walked out the door of my bedroom and saw the cops there, I was a little shocked.
Do you know the...
Our reporter Amy Cutler asked Evan if Smith had ever mentioned his past, or that he referred to himself as Mr. RTK.
All I know is the cops showed up yesterday and...
Arrested him?
Yeah.
Did he mention anything about a mental institution or what he was, what his history was?
No, he didn't. We didn't really talk much about his personal life. All I know is he was on Social Security and living here on a fixed income, and to be honest, I didn't know him that well as a person.
Did he seem off or did he seem okay?
Honestly, no, not really. He seemed fine. He was honestly one of the nicest roommates I've had in a while. And I didn't know that about him, and I'm not going to judge him for it.
That arrest all stemmed from those Facebook messages Lynn Reiner got from Smith in January.
He didn't specifically threaten me, but it's what he said is threatening.
When she went to California officials about it, they made a call.
Our sex offender notification detectives in Phoenix were contacted by law enforcement from California, who was contacted by this victim's mother.
That's the Phoenix Police Department. They claim before that call, they hadn't even heard of Carrie Smith, even though he was required to register as a sex offender.
Because of the unique way that Mr. Smith was put on this registry, it didn't meet any sort of local notification where the Phoenix Police Department was even aware of him. It wasn't until we were notified very recently by the California law enforcement officials that he was here and that they believed he had actually violated that registration.
Smith gave a crystal clear answer to police as to why he messaged Lynn.
His intentions were to harass her, make her scared.
According to court paperwork, he told officers he created the email and Facebook account and admitted looking up the victim's mom on Facebook and sending her a message saying he, Mr. RTK, was back. He told detectives he messaged her that about 10 times over the course of 3 weeks. He said he was mad at Lynn for what she said about him online and that he wanted to scare her and make her think he was back in California. But it wasn't his messages that led to his arrest. It was the fact that his email and Facebook account were not in his sexual offender registration and were required to be. Because of that, this is the first time in decades there is a criminal charge. He's now charged with 2 sex offender felonies.
But the system has kind of taken a backdoor approach to keep him locked up until a couple years ago. So I know everybody was doing everything they could to make sure he wasn't a threat to anybody. But it is really nice to finally have hopefully some criminal charges that will stick for him.
Sir, state your full and true name and your date of birth.
Terry J. Smith, December 19th, 1960.
He made his initial appearance in court Friday, February 4th.
State of Arizona versus Kerry J. Smith. Sir, I'm seeing you because you have been arrested for 2 counts of sex offense violations, alleged violations.
The state talked first and revealed new details we hadn't heard yet about his diagnosis.
It was at the trials where doctors pronounced his diagnosis, and this is the important part: schizoaffective disorder, pedophilic disorder, and sexual sadism disorder. The state is respectively requesting a $10,000 cash bond. If he is permitted, if he is able to make that bond, we'd ask that a condition of his release include a global positioning system and that he be under pretrial services. I have nothing additional. If the court has any questions, I'd be more than happy to respond.
No, thank you. Thank you, Counsel. Okay, now, Mr. Smith.
Yes, sir.
You understand you've been charged with these 2 felony crimes.
Yes.
I've heard what the deputy county attorney has told me. You don't have to make a single statement. In fact, it might be advisable considering the fact that while the lawyer has been appointed for you, he or she is not present.
Despite this, Mr. RTK still wanted to be heard to explain from his side what happened, and it all got very fiery back and forth.
Do you wish to be heard here, sir, or would you like to?
Yes, I do, Your Honor.
Okay, just a minute. Make sure you understand, sir. Anything you say could be detrimental to your own defense. All right?
Yes.
Go ahead. What was
I moved here on October 1st of 2020. I lived here well over a year. I've had no problems here at all, nothing, the whole time. I'm a level 0 sex offender, so the public does not have to be notified whenever I move. When I signed my initial data form at the sex offender office in Phoenix, I paid attention to the ones where it said, when you move, you have to register again, or if you move out of state, or if you travel. The one that said electronic devices, I signed that. I really didn't read it that thoroughly because I do not have internet access on my phone, so I didn't think it applied to me. And just recently, about 1 month ago, I discovered by accident that I have Facebook on my phone. And I didn't put it on my phone. I had no one put it on there. I don't know how it got on there. When my brother got me the phone, initially, over a year ago, he told me there was no internet access on that phone, and there wasn't. There hasn't been. So how Facebook got on there.
All right, sir.
Your Honor, can I just briefly respond?
We're not going to turn this into an oral argument, counsel, or an evidentiary hearing, but yes.
I just want to highlight the fact that Facebook, that it was investigated by the Phoenix Police Department, that he contacted the victim on the Facebook threatening again. And he admitted to the officers after Miranda that he did that so that the victims would think he was still in California to scare them and frighten them.
I did not contact the victims at all. It was not the victims.
Sir, just a minute.
It was the victim's mother.
Sir, hang on.
That's correct. It was the victim's mother. I stand corrected on that, Your Honor, but it's still related to the victim. So I think that's of high importance as to his credibility.
And it was no threat. It was no.
Don't interrupt again.
It was no threat.
Sir, if you interrupt again, I'm going to set a higher bond, and you're going to be removed. Now, please don't do that.
Okay.
I want you to have a chance to be heard.
I'm sorry, Your Honor.
This is not a hearing.
Yeah,
This is
exactly.
an initial appearance.
Okay.
All right?
I'm sorry.
Okay.
I've concluded, Your Honor. I thank you for the time.
Now, I heard from the counsel one more time. Do you want to make any other statement to clarify anything?
Yeah,
We're not going to argue facts here.
Okay.
I'm really concerned, Mr. Smith, that what you've already said could be very detrimental to your own defense, and I'm very concerned about that. But again, I got to give you the opportunity, and I'm happy to do so. Anything else you need to say before the court makes its decision on release conditions?
I did not make any threats at all. No threats.
All right. Based on the court's assessment of the situation, its understanding of the historical facts, some of which is hearsay to the court, nevertheless, the court is going to impose a $10,000 cash-only bond, sir. So you are eligible to bond out. You'll have to post it in cash. You will not be able to use a bail bonding company. If you post this bond, sir, you will be subjected to electronic monitoring and curfew. All right, I'm not going to make it house arrest, curfew. Your release conditions are extremely specific. Listen to this one, most important. You cannot have any contact of any nature whatsoever with any alleged victim, complainant, witness, or arresting officer. None.
Lynn says it's been a long 2 decades. Her once 7-year-old son is now a grown adult, a homeowner, living his own life. But as a child, she wanted to preserve his innocence.
I tried really hard over the years to protect him from it. And for a long time, there was really not much reason to let him know what was going on because the guy had been locked up. I mean, my son was 7 when this started. And Smith spent 20 years in a secured location. So we knew he couldn't get out. So my son knew a little bit about it at the time, more a couple years ago when Smith was released, and I told him, all of the gory details because I wanted to make sure he kept himself safe at that point.
When Lynn contacted authorities a few weeks ago, she had no idea Smith was violating anything. She just wanted them to be aware he was reaching out to her again and sending these cryptic messages. She says this is a best-case scenario for her family at this point, knowing there are at least some criminal charges filed.
He's had a long history of not helping himself, so I hope that he continues that. It wasn't very smart of him to reach out to me on Facebook, and he did that.
Carrie Smith has multiple court hearings this month. Lynn hopes Mr. RTK never has the chance to ever hurt any little boy or anybody again. True Crime Arizona, the podcast, is hosted by me, Brianna Whitney, and produced by Sergio Hernandez. It's a production of Arizona's Family, 3TV, CBS 5, and azfamily.com in Phoenix, Arizona.